My name is Aurora. I'm 28 years old, living in a small apartment in San Francisco. One night, after working a grueling 12-hour shift, I came home to find something that would change everything. I walked into my apartment, expecting to collapse onto my bed, but instead, I was met with an empty room. No bed, no clothes, no sign of my existence anywhere. My heart sank as I realized everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed, was gone. And then I heard it. My mother's voice, cold and final, broke the silence. "There's no reason for you to stay here anymore. Get out." I stood there, frozen. The walls that I had built up over the years, the ones that held me together, came crashing down in an instant. I had spent over $10,000 supporting my sister Hannah through college, making sure she had everything she needed while I sacrificed my own dreams. My family lived rent-free in a house I paid for, but the moment I completed my duty, I was no longer needed. In their eyes, I was disposable. Before I share everything with you, the pain, the betrayal, and the moments that broke me, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Growing up, things were always complicated with Linda, my mother. She was always strong, but in a way that made me feel like I was expected to carry the weight of everything. She wasn't the nurturing type. She didn't need to be. The pressure of being the strong one, the responsible one, always fell on my shoulders. My younger sister, Hannah, was always the golden child, loved, adored, and spoiled by Mom. Everything seemed to revolve around her. It wasn't that I didn't love her. I did, with all my heart. But there was always this underlying bitterness. Why did it always fall to me to sacrifice? Why was I the one who had to be strong for the family when all I wanted was someone to lean on? I never understood it, and I resented it deeply, even if I never voiced it. I had been working tirelessly, pouring every ounce of myself into keeping everything afloat. Long hours at work, sacrifices here and there, always trying to make sure they were taken care of. And then one evening, after another exhausting shift, I came home, hoping for a quiet, peaceful moment. But that's not what I found. When I opened the door to my room, I froze. It was completely emptied out. No bed, no clothes, no sign of anything that had ever been mine. It was as if I had never existed in that house at all. The walls that had once held my memories, my dreams, were now bare. My heart sank as I stood there, trying to comprehend what I was seeing. It wasn't just the loss of my room. It was the loss of my place in their lives. All the years of supporting them, of sacrificing everything, and now I was nothing. I walked out into the cold night, feeling the silence swallow me whole. The weight of it all was suffocating. The woman I had supported, the family I had given everything for, had just thrown me away. I couldn't even cry. I felt empty, numb. My heart felt frozen over, like I had been erased. In that moment, I was nothing, just a person who had been used, tossed aside. I was invisible. As I stood there, lost in my thoughts, my phone vibrated in my hand. It was Hannah. I hesitated for a moment, knowing that her excitement, her joy, would be a sharp contrast to the storm inside me. With a deep breath, I answered. "Big sis, I did it! I got the scholarship!" Her voice was full of life, of joy. I should have been happy for her. I wanted to be. But instead, it felt like a cruel twist of fate. How could she be so excited, so carefree, when everything I had done, everything I had given, was being erased in front of me? Her words hit me harder than I expected. "Sis, I know things have been hard, but you're not alone. I'm coming to live with you. I can't stand seeing you go through this." I froze. Hannah, the little sister I had always protected, was offering me something I never thought I'd hear: support. She had always been the one I'd looked after, the one I had sacrificed for. But now, she was the one offering me something I desperately needed. She had grown up. She was offering me the very thing I had always wanted: someone to share the burden with, someone to help me carry it. Standing on that quiet street, the wind biting at my skin, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief and dread at the same time. I knew, deep down, that I had to let go of this broken family. I had to walk away from the years of sacrifice, from the constant struggle. But walking away meant giving up everything I had ever known. It was terrifying. But as Hannah's words echoed in my mind, I realized she was right. I didn't have to carry the burden alone anymore. She would be there for me, and for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope. After everything that had happened, Hannah and I found a small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was ours, a tiny space filled with the promise of new beginnings. The first night we spent there, I sat on the couch, staring out at the blank walls, feeling the weight that had been crushing me for so long slowly lift off my shoulders. The air felt different in this space, clean, open, like a breath of fresh air after being trapped for years. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe again. It was a strange sense of freedom, as if I had just stepped out of a shadow that had loomed over me for too long. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Every morning, we woke up in that small apartment, facing the world with nothing but hope and determination. Hannah started school, and I found a few freelance projects to keep us going. There were nights when we barely had enough to eat, and we lived off ramen noodles and cheap takeout, but somehow I had never felt as alive as I did in those moments. We laughed at our ridiculous situations, we cried together when the weight of everything seemed too much to bear, and we made plans for a future where we didn't have to answer to anyone but ourselves. It wasn't easy. It was far from glamorous, but it was real. And for the first time, I felt like we were building something that was truly ours, something we had fought for. I watched Hannah grow in ways I hadn't imagined. She was no longer the spoiled younger sister who depended on me for everything. She was working hard, going to school, and helping out around the apartment. Her transformation wasn't just practical, it was emotional. I saw her learn how to stand on her own 2 feet, how to take responsibility for her own future. It was like watching someone bloom after years of being confined, and as I watched her, I felt a wave of pride. This was the girl I had always protected, the one I had carried for so long. But now, she was standing beside me, and in that, I found strength. One evening, after a long day of work and school, we collapsed onto the couch, exhausted but content. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable, it was peaceful. We had both come a long way, and it felt like we were finally on the same level, working together for the same dream. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was living just to survive. I wasn't just getting by, enduring each day like it was a battle. I was living for me, for US. I had finally learned that it was okay to put myself first, to stop carrying everyone else's burden. I didn't have to be the one to fix everything anymore. I could live for myself, and that was enough. In that moment, I felt stronger than I ever had before. There was still so much work to do, so many uncertainties ahead. But as I sat there next to Hannah, I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer afraid of the future. I was ready to face it because now I had someone to face it with. One day, after everything had settled into a new routine, Hannah and I decided to visit our grandparents. I hadn't seen them in years, and though our relationship with them was distant, there was something comforting about their home. They welcomed us with open arms, their warm smiles making me forget, even if just for a moment, the storm that had raged in my own life. Over tea, we chatted about the past, about family, and what had changed since I last visited. It felt like a moment of peace, a rare breath in the chaos of my world. But then, Grandpa's voice cut through the conversation with a question that would shake the foundation of everything I thought I knew. "Your mother told us you two gave up your inheritance. Is that true?" I froze. The words didn't make sense at first. My mind raced, but the room felt like it was closing in. "What inheritance?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Hannah looked at me, her brow furrowed in confusion. We both stared at Grandpa, waiting for more information, but he was already pulling out some old documents from a drawer. His hands trembled slightly as he handed them to us. Grandpa handed me the first paper, and my eyes immediately went to the familiar names, mine and Hannah's. But something was off. There were signatures below our names, signatures I didn't recognize. The document claimed that we had waived our rights to our father's inheritance, something I had never agreed to. My heart sank. The truth hit me like a freight train. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't an error. Our signatures had been forged. I felt sick. The room spun, and my vision blurred. I had been lied to for so long, and now I was holding the proof in my hands. The life I had lived, the sacrifices I had made, the trust I had placed in my family, it was all built on a lie. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, but more than that, I felt violated. This wasn't just about money or inheritance. This was about betrayal. Betrayal from the one person I had trusted most in this world. My mother. I looked at Hannah. Her face mirrored my shock, her eyes wide with disbelief. But as the shock wore off, a burning anger started to replace it. We both knew this wasn't just about the inheritance. This was about standing up for what was right, about demanding the truth. "I'm not staying silent anymore," I said, my voice shaking but steady with resolve. I had let so much slide in the past. I had let my family push me down, make decisions for me, and now I was done. Hannah nodded, her eyes hardening. "We're going to fix this, Aurora. We have to." We made the decision right then and there. We couldn't let our mother get away with this, not anymore. We needed to take action. The next day, we went to see a lawyer. The thought of taking legal action, of exposing the lies and betrayal, felt like a weight had been lifted. I wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. I was determined to fight for what was rightfully ours, not just the inheritance, but the truth. I wasn't going to be silent anymore. This was my chance to stand up, to take control of my life, and to show everyone that I wouldn't let anyone walk over me again. The day of the trial arrived, and with it came a heavy mixture of fear and determination. I had spent countless sleepless nights preparing for this moment, wondering if I was making the right decision, if it was all worth it. But now, standing in the courtroom, I knew there was no turning back. The only way forward was through. As we sat in the sterile, cold room, I glanced across the aisle at my mother. She sat there stoic, her face a mask of indifference, as if she didn't feel the weight of the accusations being laid against her. I could almost see the walls she had built around herself, walls that kept me out, and now they were keeping her from facing the consequences of her actions. The lawyer laid out the forged documents on the table, documents that had been presented as if they were truth. But I knew better. The reality of everything that had happened hit me hard. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about the inheritance. It was about what Mother had taken from us, from our family. She had stolen our future, our dignity, and our trust. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a complete disregard for everything my father had worked for. When the judge turned to my mother, asking her about the signatures on the documents, she froze. Her lips parted, but there was no explanation, no remorse in her eyes. Just silence. And in that silence, the weight of everything became too much for me to bear. I couldn't stay silent anymore. My father worked his entire life for us to live in peace, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I won't let that be twisted for someone's selfish gain. The words came out like a release, like a dam that had been holding back all my anger, my pain, and my confusion. I wasn't just speaking for my father anymore. I wasn't speaking for my family. For the first time in my life, I was speaking for me. I stood firm, not just for the inheritance, but for my own truth, for the right to be seen, to be heard, and to take back what had been taken from me. It was more than money. It was about reclaiming my life. When the verdict was announced, I felt no joy, no sense of relief. My mother was found guilty of forgery, and we were granted the inheritance. But as I walked out of the courtroom, something strange happened. I realized that the real victory wasn't the money. It wasn't about the inheritance at all. It was about reclaiming my life, my identity, my strength, and my sense of self. That moment marked the end of a long chapter, but it also marked the beginning of something new. After the trial, Hannah and I started a new chapter, one where we could build our future together without the weight of our past holding us down. The apartment we had started in, the life we were building, it was ours, and no one could take it from us. I finally realized that cutting ties with toxic people wasn't betrayal. It wasn't about abandoning family. It was a form of self-love. I had spent so many years trying to fix something that wasn't mine to fix, trying to carry the weight of a family that didn't appreciate me. But now, I was free. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had the right to put myself first. Hannah and I had created something beautiful together, a future built on trust, on mutual respect, and on a bond that no one could ever break. It was something worth fighting for, and it was the only thing I truly needed. In the end, I didn't just fight for what was mine. I fought for the freedom to live my life. The person I had been for so many years, the one who sacrificed endlessly for others, the one who thought my worth was tied to what I gave, was no longer who I was. I had spent my life trying to keep others afloat, trying to be everything for everyone, never asking for anything in return. But I finally understood something important. I didn't have to live for them. I could live for me. The victory in the courtroom wasn't just about the inheritance or the betrayal I had uncovered. It was about reclaiming my right to choose my own path. It was about realizing that I had value, not because of what I could do for others, but because I existed. I didn't need anyone's approval to validate my worth. Living with that realization felt liberating, like I had taken a deep breath after holding it in for far too long. For the first time, I felt like I could stand on my own, without the weight of guilt, resentment, or fear holding me back. I could finally be me. Hannah and I started a new chapter, and as I looked at the life we were building together, I knew it was more than just a new beginning. It was a rebirth, a chance to live for ourselves, to make decisions based on what we wanted, not what others expected of us. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments of doubt, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was living. If you've ever been made to feel like you were never enough, like your sacrifices went unnoticed, know this: it's okay to stand up for yourself. You are worth more than the weight you carry for others. Sometimes the hardest thing is to let go, but it's the only way to find peace. And if you're in the midst of your own battle, remember that you're not alone. The road to healing is tough, but it's worth it. Stand tall, reclaim your life, and know that you have the strength to overcome anything. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your story in the comments below. We all deserve a life where we are valued for who we truly are.